While the band worked to keep their act together on stage, Lindsay was on the brink of a new partnership off stage.
I honestly was stunned by him. I knew that somehow we were going to end up together. There was this immediate chemistry.
She was hired by Warner Brothers just to take some photographs. We hit it off immediately and had a lot to talk about right away. And then, you know, she said, well, thanks, I got my photographs. But then she came back.
I didn't know the specter of Stevie at all. I didn't know it existed. I knew that he didn't have a good relationship, though, since Stevie.
I'm a soul drifter. In 1998, Kristen gave birth to the couple's first child, William Gregory Buckingham.
My mom died about 2 years ago. She got to see my son. I think she realized that there was an anchor and a structure there for me that hadn't been there ever in my life.
Lindsay and Kristen had a second child, a daughter, Lily, in 2000. The same year, they even found time to tie the knot.
We got married up on a hill in a sugarcane field. You can't get any better than a moment like that.
I thought he never would get married. When you're married and a parent, you have to learn to compromise. And that's not easy for anybody, but particularly that hasn't been easy for Lindsay.
It's a new dawn. Between family, music, and the Mac, the Studio Hermit has had a busy schedule.
We're working on the Hermit. He's coming out slowly, you know. It's hard to come out after 20, 30 years.
But would Lindsay's new love and happiness take the edge off his creative angst?
One does slightly worry about the future of Fleetwood Mac when you hear that the various members have gotten happy.
I think Lindsay is such an intense and artistic individual that actually getting a life outside of music gave him more balance.
I've got the big movie, if you want to call Fleetwood Mac that, and the small movie, the art movie, which is solo projects.
In 1998, not only was the band inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but they also performed at the prestigious Brit Awards, where they received the Outstanding Contribution to Music Award.
The love for music is something that's got us through a great deal of turmoil from time to time, and we're here, we're alive and well, and most of all, really happy. So God bless and thank you.
Coming up, almost before the fans' applause fades, the chain is about to be broken again with the departure of one of the band's longtime members.
No amount of money, no amount of... I don't plead, but a few other people did. No, she's not going to do it.
We were kind of a walking soap opera for many years, and that was part of the appeal. You know, we brought out the voyeur in everyone.
But despite the ongoing soap opera, the band will produce a brand new album with all the old magic.
You know, Fleetwood Mac has this reputation as being easy listening, and I think, in fact, they're really great at uneasy listening.
Absolutely blown away by that album.
When Behind the Music continues. Fleetwood Mac was back on top. 30 years after their dance concert had been followed by a world tour, and their dance album had reached #1 on the Billboard chart. But the good times were under threat. Christine McVie had been a member of the band since 1970. She had even agreed to share the limelight with Lindsay's girlfriend, Stevie Nicks.
What could you have thought when Lindsay walks in with his girlfriend, and maybe the most beautiful woman on earth, and you're the woman in Fleetwood Mac?
For all those years, she and Stevie had been the female core of the band. But after the dance tour, Christine simply walked away.
The whole showbiz thing was never big with Chris.
She sold her house in Los Angeles and basically moved back to England.
I think that was it, and I just said, I just have to go home. It still took me 5 years to finally move back here. But no, I have had no regrets.
Lindsay and Stevie were sort of at the front, and Christine may have felt a little bit pushed aside.
It really affected Stevie more than anyone. I mean, they were friends. Me, I'm an old gigster. We like to get on the stage and play, and Stevie's the same way. So there's an ethic about getting out there and showing off, or whatever you call it. She never had that, you know.
Whatever her reasons, in the end, the rest of this tight-knit band of brothers and sisters had to respect her decision.
There actually is a lot of love in a band like Fleetwood Mac.
She burst into tears, and I held her in my arms, and she just looked straight at me and said, "Please don't ask me."
Mick knew it would be useless to ask her to stay.
You know, it was the end of an era, for sure.
What was not so sure was that the band could find their roles in the new era they were now entering without Christine.
The lack of the keyboard as a presence allowed me to reassert my guitar style a little more.
It put a stress on Lindsay.
I think that was something that I was able to do in more full force as a four-piece band than I had ever been able to do before.
Through 2002, Lindsay had been working on material for a new solo album. But in the continuing climate of togetherness, in 2003, the band decided to create a Fleetwood Mac album instead.
I had something like a completed solo album, and Mick had played on quite a bit of it, so it had much of the signature of Fleetwood Mac about it.
I was happy to be making an album, but it had its problems.
Because Stevie, too, had been working on solo projects. The challenge was to integrate her work into the mix.
What do you think?
I like it. Don't think about it. We'll do as many tracks as you want until you get tired, and then we'll make something wonderful out of it later.
Say you will, give me one more chance. At least give me time to change your mind. That always seems to heal if I can get you there. Something in you put a hole.
And Lindsay and me and John had already done a cartload of stuff, and it was hard to integrate in the way that it should have been at that point, and it showed.
You could say it's not the most coherent piece of work, but you could say that about a lot of things we've done. You certainly could say that about Tusk, which is probably my favorite Fleetwood Mac album.
But they needn't have worried.
Absolutely blown away by that album. As far as I'm concerned, Say You Will's their greatest ever album. Absolutely Lindsay Buckingham's finest hour.
I love those songs. They were hits in my heart and in my mind.
What it does is it confirms the idea that Lindsay Buckingham is Fleetwood Mac's built-in Brian Eno stroke Brian Wilson. There's some astonishing stuff going on the album.
The album debuted at number 3 on the Billboard 200 chart, and Peacekeeper and the title track, Say You Will, also charted as singles. 2004 saw the band out on the road with their Say You Will tour. The good times were rolling again, on stage and off. And Lindsay and Stevie were on more level ground, at last.
This was the girl that I used to live with, and it was no longer bittersweet, which it had been for so long. It was just sweet.
Lindsay and I, we have something very special. We decided to do this a long, long time ago. And we fought for it. We had a pot of gold that we were searching for together, and we never gave up until we got it. So now, that's a pretty great thing.
It is a strange, tortured love story.
He loves Stevie, as we all do. Has it sort of happened? Absolutely. Does it sort of happen on stage? Absolutely.
Now the two of us can link arms and walk out on stage and say to everyone without saying it, we worked very hard for this.
After the Say You Will tour, the band took a break to catch up on their own individual projects. Then in 2006, with Christine 8 years gone, they looked at bringing in another female vocalist.
I said, well, what if there was another person? Just a what if.
For instance, what if there was Sheryl Crow?
I know Stevie and Sheryl have always been very close, and there's a lot of respect.
She is sort of this timeless character to me. She doesn't change, and she still maintains her integrity, and she just is able to sort of kind of radiate this youthfulness.
that young lady's got the stuff.
But as so often before, the band was divided, this time on the wisdom of including Cheryl in the lineup.
What was she going to be doing? Coming out and playing Christine McVie songs? Or she's certainly not going to come out and play Sheryl Crow songs.
Yeah, she's a fairly raunchy, folk and country inflected pop singer.
The whole thing didn't quite make sense to me conceptually.
And you'd think, yeah, she's kind of a surrogate younger Stevie. It makes sense. Totally wrong.
No one can replace Christine McVie, and Cheryl is an artist in her own right.
It would have been interesting, but we took a different turn.
In March of 2008, Sheryl Crow announced that after all, she would not be working with Fleetwood Mac in 2009. It was to be another first for the Mac, a greatest hits tour without an album to promote.
There's a certain freedom to coming to the realization that people may want to hear your body of work that already exists.
It taught us a nice lesson that we can do that, and we did it. And we loved it, and the audience loved it.
Their audience has been loyal to Fleetwood Mac, with all their comings and goings, since the band first formed in 1967. Getting older, still going strong. 40 years ago, who would have foreseen the extraordinary ongoing appeal of this unlikely band?
Well, you can never market research Fleetwood Mac into being. People would say that, no, they don't look right, that one's too tall, his hair's wrong, they're half from America, half from England.
They really were a band that was an expression of the male and the female spirit, sort of battling it out.
The haphazard nature of existence has brought together these 5 individuals from various corners of the globe, and it's somehow worked.
Making love, making war, and in the end, just making some of the greatest records of all time.
It's Buckingham Nicks. They are out the front, and Fleetwood Mac are right there behind them, and that's the band, you know. It should be like that.
Music that primally good can keep you young and keep you alive, and I hope they never stop.
There are things that have yet to happen in Fleetwood Mac.
Lindsay and me would love to make another Fleetwood Mac album.
I think we should certainly make at least one more album.
Fleetwood Mac has been making music together for nearly 40 years, and it's the fact they stayed together that is perhaps the greatest tribute of all.
If I did it all over again, I would probably do the same thing. I love my music. I'm not willing to give up my music for anybody.
I truly suspect that when we next go out, there'll be something, mix of what Stevie and Lindsay have done, and we can play some of that on stage.
I know that Lindsay and I have to spend a lot more time together. But our karma says that we have to spend a lot of time together. We have to be in a band for 100 more years together.
I don't think they'll stop making music with one another until someone drops, and I hope that never happens.
Listen to the window, watch the sunrise.
In The Chain, Fleetwood Mac sings of love lost and love rescued. They sing of darkness and sunrises. They sing of a bond that can never be broken, a fitting prophecy for a group of very different people who will forever be linked together by their lives, their dreams, and their music.
This reconvening it's a truthful reconvening. It's a truthful feel to it. It's a reflection of everyone having healed.